A 44-gun frigate, like our cherished old Ironsides, took over 60 tons of hemp for rigging, including an anchor cable 25 inches in circumference. In those days, planting later in the fall. In Wisconsin, in 1942, 14,000 acres of fiber hemp were harvested in the United States. The goal for 1943 is 300,000 acres.